Good evening. Hi, I'm Pat Luebke. I'm the Dean of the School of Education here at Alverno. I realized this year, I came to Alverno 5 years ago after a long career in public education, and I realized in September that this is my 45th year. So you can still be going after 45 years and still be having fun. So, yeah, my first teaching job was in September of 1971, years before many of you were born. I'm happy to be the first of many to welcome you to Alverno College, a place where I have been re-energized after retiring from public education. And I'm particularly happy to invite you to this wonderful event, which will showcase not only best practices and some of the research that's occurring in the area of mindfulness in schools, but to be able to highlight some of the terrific works that is going on in our schools out there. Any kind of an event like this cannot happen without a dedicated group of people who put their hearts and minds to it. And I'd like to especially thank Desiree Pointer-Mace, standing to my right, who is our Associate Dean. Julie Borgeld, who is probably still out at the registration desk, who is the whiz of the college's institute and puts these things together, and also put together this gorgeous program that I think you're going to like a lot. And let's say one for Julie. And last but not least, one of the things that's so wonderful about Alverno is its collaborative nature. And the last person I'd like to thank is Amy Shapiro, who's sitting right here in the front row, a professor of philosophy here at Alverno, and one who is very grounded in mindfulness and has really brought that aspect to the college. I just want to give you a little bit of a picture of how we got here and where we're going, and then I'm going to turn it over because there are a whole lot of wonderful people who are going to be talking today. Last year, we began a conversation here with our forum that some of you may have been at, but it was about trauma-sensitive schools. And we had a large group again, and part of what we talked about at that forum were strategies for working with students who have experienced trauma. That's a huge topic, and we'll go further with that in the future. But one of the strategies that came up over and over again, one of the practices, one of the mindsets, was the idea of incorporating mindfulness, not only for those students who experience trauma, but for those of us who are in the field every day. And so this year's forum is highlighting practices in mindfulness. We're going to have a review of research, practice in school where things are happening. We're going to give you an opportunity to explore your own practice, no matter where you are. It can go from 0 to 100. And we'll be able to highlight some of the schools in the area who are doing terrific work. The one thing I'd ask you to do is at the end of the forum, if you would please fill out the assessment, it's a big word around here, the assessment of the forum, which will then give us ideas for where we may want to go in the future, both in the area of trauma-sensitive schools and the area of mindfulness. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this mic over to Desiree, who will introduce our presenters. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Amy. All right, so how many of you are tired because you were in a school today? Okay, that's what I thought. So we really wanted to plan this evening with your needs in mind. As Pat mentioned, we had a forum last year that was very well received, and one of the things that people really resonated with was the idea of mindfulness. Now, we also know that this is happening not only in the 4 school sites that you're going to hear from, but people are discovering that there are some powerful practices that you can practice and that you can practice with your students that can have very tremendous outcomes. We know that this is a turbulent world, and that turbulence travels right into the classroom and right over the school threshold every single day. and that teachers are kind of the emotional first responders for all of that turbulence. And so, first of all, as just a colleague and a teacher and a parent of 2 children in a public school in Milwaukee, I want to thank you very much for everything that you did today. Right, really. Also, I'm curious about how many of you are students or alumni of Alverno? Nice. Welcome home. This place, as you may remember, Alverno is named for Mount Laverna in Italy, which is the mountain where St. Francis retreated with his brothers to contemplate and find meaning. And so every time that we have a forum like this, it's an opportunity like that to affirm the very mission and the name of Alverno by gathering together. One of the things that was very cool when we were planning this in our cross-disciplinary, cross-organizational process was that we found this image, which we're going to be using as a map this evening. So on the back here, you'll see that there are branches on this tree that correspond to big posters around the room, because we want to give you a chance to just talk and connect. You'll see at the root of this tree, there is communion, connection, and awareness. Those are our objectives for this evening, right? I'm not promising you that you're going to be an expert on mindfulness at 7:45 this evening. I am promising you that you will feel a sense of communion and connection, and that hopefully your awareness will be expanded. So, in part to start with that, one of our wonderful, wonderful friends and colleagues and inspirations is going to begin this evening with a guided centering practice. Her name is Susan Lubar Solvang. Many of you who know the wonderful work of Growing Minds may already know Susan. And I've personally been able to benefit from her teachings, and I just thought that there was no better way to honor your work that you did today than to start with some centering in. Susan.
Hi. I recognize a lot of people here, so this is really exciting. We're going to start with something, a practice that we use in schools, so that you can become familiar with what we do. And if you look at this tree, it's on the left side of the tree. It's under stillness and generative. Stillness and generative. So if you're really tired right now because it's been a long day, I'm going to suggest that you stand up, okay? So that as you allow your muscles to unwind, you don't fall asleep, because that would be the natural thing for you to do. And that's the very first and most important part of any practice that we teach, is that you are regulating yourself. Where are you right now? So I'm going to guide you through a process of using your attention. It's something, a skill you use in school all the time. We're going to take our awareness and we're going to zoom in like a laser, and then we're going to zoom out like a wide angle light. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Zoom in and zoom out with our attention. So let's start, if you're sitting, with 2 feet on the floor, and if you're standing, 2 feet on the floor, with a long, strong back, so you feel dignified and respectful and solid and stable. If you want, you can look down, and if you're comfortable closing your eyes, you're welcome to do that. So let's begin by bringing our attention and zooming in to the soles of your feet. Zoom into the soles of your feet, feeling pressure or moisture, sweatiness, or tingling, or any other sensations that might be in your feet. And when you're ready, on the out-breath, zooming out, and then on the in-breath, zooming into where your body meets the chair if you're sitting. And if you're standing, you might bring your attention to your thighs or your lower back. And just notice what's happening here. Can you feel the chair? Is it soft or hard? Can you feel your clothes against your waist? Any sensations that you have there. If you're standing, you might feel the tightening of your thighs. And on the out-breath, letting go of this area and bringing your attention to your shoulders. What's happening here after a long day? If your muscles are tight and tense, notice that. If you have any particular aches or pains, say hello to that. And if you want to, just roll your shoulders. Rearrange yourself so you feel more comfortable in your own body. And on the out-breath, letting go of your shoulders, and then zooming into your jaw. Are your teeth clenched? Or is your jaw soft and relaxed and hanging? Where's your tongue? Take a moment to just check in, and then allow everything to soften. And on the out-breath, letting go of the awareness of your jaw and zooming into your eyes. Noticing any wateriness or dryness or tightness at the corners of your eyes or between the eyebrows. And when you're ready, softening that. And then taking your attention and releasing it from your eyes and zooming into your breath. Wherever you feel your breath the best, your nose, your chest, or your belly. And if you want, you can actually put your hand on that part of you. Just gently, kindly saying to yourself, here I am, here's my breath. This is the generative part. Allowing the breath to deepen, perhaps, or slow down. And when you're ready, letting go of the breath and zooming your attention out and getting a picture of your entire self from head to toe, from toe to head. Just taking a moment to feel yourself in this space. To allow your awareness to encapsulate more than any single thought from the day, or any single emotion, or any single ache. An awareness that you're so much more than that. And let's end by thinking of one thing that we're grateful for. One thing today, big or small. Maybe it was a clean pair of pants. Maybe it was a great laugh in your classroom. Anything. And just take a moment to feel the gratitude that might arise from having that as part of your life. That person or those people, the experience, the thought, the place. And when you're ready, opening your eyes. And when you feel like it, taking a seat. Thank you.
Well, I feel different. We are going to continue this lovely evening with hearing some experiences and perspectives by Lori Gustafson, who is representing the Center for Healthy Minds, formerly known as the Center for Investigating Healthy Minds in Madison. The work of the center is way too difficult to condense into a brief introduction. So I will just suffice to say that I am a fan of Lori and her colleagues and all of their work, and that she's going to come up and share with you some of the work and the learning that is going on among her and her colleagues. Lori.
Taking a look around. This is my first time here. This is just wonderful to be here. So thank you for having me. As Desiree said, I'm Lori Gustafson, and I'm an outreach specialist at the Center for Healthy Minds, which is located in the Weissman Center at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And the center is large. We have a lot of research projects going on there. And so what I do is I work on the education team there. And so it's appropriate that I'm here talking to the educators. So I'd like to just start with the mission statement of the center. There it is. So the mission is to cultivate well-being and relieve suffering through a scientific understanding of the mind. Rather a lofty mission. And our vision is a kinder, wiser, more compassionate world. And I've got to say, this vision is taking on a deeper and deeper meaning for me in the midst of all that is happening in communities, in the country, and in the world. I won't mention the election season, but I just did. So I'm going to briefly talk about two of the studies that I've been working on. And so my job at the center, my role is to design and implement the programs for teachers and students that are being researched. And I really want to make it clear that I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher. I work next to them. I share an office with them. And so I will do a shout out to the research and the measures, and then I might have to just step aside. So Dr. Richard Davidson, the founder of the center, talks about well-being as a skill. And he talks about the constituents of well-being. And I'm going to highlight 4 of the constituents here. And the first one is attention. And what we're finding in the research is that a wandering mind is not necessarily a happy mind. And in fact, there is a study out there that says many of us spend they come up with 47% of our time not focused on what we're doing, really distracted. And Richie says we can do better than that. So through some of these mindfulness-based skills, we can start building this attentional muscle. It turns out that someone who is focused on what they're doing is actually feeling happier, feeling more fulfilled. The second component is resilience. How quickly do we recover from a difficult situation or a challenge? And it's not to say that the difficulty or the challenge goes away, but we can learn to relate to it in a different way. And this supports our well-being. The third one is outlook, and specifically positive outlook. So it's in our nature to scan the environment, looking for danger, looking for threats. But oftentimes those threats come in as like someone cutting me off on the belt line, or perhaps cutting me off in my conversation, or maybe a student knows exactly how to push those buttons and he's doing it on purpose, and I perceive it as a threat. And then I hold on to it, and I might review, I might worry. And what we can do is actually cultivate a more positive outlook through kindness and compassion practices. It's not to say we bypass the negative emotions, but we don't have to live there. And the fourth one I love, generosity. And so just by connecting with each other, offering, giving, actually makes us feel better. And then there's gratitude that we can bring into that as well. So how are we cultivating the skill of well-being in schools? I got to say we're just at the beginning stages of finding out how this impacts students. We have a little bit more information on how it impacts adults. But this is one of the studies that I'm involved in, and the title is A Classroom-Based Training Program for Attention and Emotion Regulation. It's kind of a mouthful. It's a 3-year grant that we received from the Department of Education, and we're taking a look at what happens if we can build a model. It's a train the trainers model, and to see if we can develop a program that is sustainable, viable, and reliable. So you can see from this graph up here, or the slide, is that it's 3 years, and the first year was a pilot year. So we were just trying out the program for the teachers and for the students, and that it was such a learning experience. We got so much feedback from both teachers and students as what really resonated with them, what we could change. The second year is when we had a waitlist control group, and teachers were randomized to either the waitlist control group or to the intervention group, and that's such a clinical term, but we do say the intervention or treatment group. And so that the co-teaching group is the one that's receiving the training. And the third year is now, we are now in the third year. So we have a waitlist control group, we have a co-teaching group, and then we also have a group that's already experienced the practices for themselves. They've been in the classroom with us. They're going to try it out on their own. And so we're really looking forward to seeing what happens and what kind of support they need. This is a developmental grant, so we get to change it as we go. So this is the other name for the same study. We call it Aware and Awake. Aware is abilities in well-being and attention and resilience in education, and that's for the teachers. And awake is abilities in well-being, attention, and kindness in education, and that's for the students. And we want kindness for the teachers as well. So the teacher intervention starts in the fall. And this is a chance for the teachers to develop their own practice. What we tell them is set aside the idea that you're going to bring this into the classroom. We want them to learn the practices for themselves, to really gain a deep understanding of how these practices affect them before they take it to their students. So the intervention is 10 classes, 75 minutes per class. There's an all-day mindfulness or a practice day where it's an extended period of practice. And it's PD, which is professional development. And I want to highlight that point. It means that they're receiving this training during contract hours, which means we have the trust of principals and administrators, and that we can come into the schools and offer this. And so this really does take some time to develop that kind of trust, to develop that kind of understanding. The format for each class is the same. It's a welcome, just as Susan did, a welcome and a drop-in. How is it now after a busy day? How is the body feeling? How is the mind feeling? We introduce an attitude or a theme, maybe the attitude of patience, acceptance, maybe the theme of perception, stress triggers, reactivity versus response. And then we do a formal practice. And that formal practice is 20 to 25 minutes long. And it might come in the form of a body scan or a movement practice, breath awareness, maybe a kindness practice, and a combination of them. But it gives them a chance to really see, so what's here now? And the practice is always followed by inquiry. So what was the experience like? What happened for you? How is it different? What's showing up? So there's a lot of interaction that happens with this. And then we send them home to practice on their own. And this part is so important. We're building this attentional muscle, and it takes practice. So usually the home practice is anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes. And, you know, it's really hard for teachers to find 5 minutes. And they come back and they report that. And they said, I was going to do it then, and then all of a sudden the day was done. And then they're also realizing what they do put their attention on. And so that's a practice in itself. The student intervention happens in the spring. And I want to point out that the teacher intervention parallels the student intervention. So everything that the teacher is going to offer to the students in the classroom in the spring, they've already experienced for themselves in their own class. So it's not a surprise at all. It's not like they have to learn a new curriculum. It's 8 weeks long, 2 times a week, 20 to 25 minutes per session during the school day. And it's the same format as we use with the teachers' training. But the practices are shorter, they're a little bit more fun, they're a little bit flashier. I want to also mention another project that we're working on, and this is a pre-service teachers project. So this is a well-being training for teacher education students in the School of Education. And the emphasis is on developing attention and resiliency to see if there's an impact on how it is for them, their semester of student teaching, and into their first years of teaching. And so we offer this program the semester before they go into their student teaching semester. And I got to tell you, on a scale of 1 to 10, stress being like their head is going to fall off and they're going to split in two, they're all around 8, 9, and 10. And so we're just seeing what happens. And there it is. A little bit like that. Okay. So there's 4 phases to this study. Each phase has a control group and an intervention group. And we are in the 3rd cohort right now. In fact, I'm just coming directly from a class that I just taught. And I have to say, it's really where my heart is. It's really wonderful to spend time with them. The intervention is 9 classes, an hour and a half per class. We offer 2 days, 2 intensive days, so that's 4 hours each time that they're taking time to do extended practices. And we had that last Sunday. So they had 3 classes, then they had an intensive, now they'll have 6 more classes and another intensive. And then we offer booster sessions during their semester of student teaching. And we're going to follow them for 3 years after they graduate to see what happens. There's so many young teachers who leave the profession within the first 5 years. So we're going to just see what happens. Okay, so here's my shout out to the research. There are measures. We have pre and post measures. And these are the measures that we use for the 5th graders, for the 5th grade teachers, and for the pre-service teachers. And these are both qualitative and quantitative measures. There's so much qualitative research out there. And we really want to focus on the quantitative research at the center. So we're not doing blood draws and we're not taking saliva samples measuring cortisol, but we are doing a lot of the computer tasks and just seeing what shows up. And we don't have any of the results yet, but wait, I'll come back and report on that. So, what is the impact of mindfulness-based practices for students? Well, I'm going to tell you the research is young. We have so much out there on adults, but there's very, very little published on the effects on children. What I can say is mindfulness-based interventions in children and youth show promise, particularly in relationship to improving cognitive performance and resilience to stress. So let's explore it. It shows great promise. In one study at the center, which focused on 4-year-olds, we have the kindness curriculum. It showed that after an 8-week intervention, there were increases in focus attention, emotions regulation, and demonstration of pro-social skills. But it's important to note that when students were tested again at a 6-month follow-up time point, the changes were not sustained. So this points to the idea that without interactions with an adult who embodies it, who models it, it really shows that these students cannot sustain it And so it really shows the benefit of bringing this into the classroom via the teachers, via the adults. So what's the impact of mindfulness on teachers and on adults? We can say a little bit more about this. So there was a study at the Center for Healthy Minds. It was an 8-week modified mindfulness-based stress reduction class. We offered it for teachers. And what we found is it increases in self-compassion and a personal sense of accomplishment, increases in effective teaching behavior, and significant reduction in psychological symptoms and burnout. That's pretty good news. But in contrast, the control group participants who did not receive the modified MBSR class, it was just the opposite. They showed increases in psychological symptoms and burnout and declines in sustained attention. So, practical instructions, here we are. Now what, right? How does it affect us? Well, I do a lot of work in the schools. I didn't mention that I taught in the schools for 30 years in Madison. And I'm still there. 2 days a week I go and I work in classrooms. I work with teachers in one school in Madison. I hear a lot of, my class really needs that. Or that student over there, he's the one who really needs it, but he's, locked himself away in the locker. And so I'd like to quote Chris Willard from his book, Growing Up Mindful. And he writes, one of the most common questions from parents and professionals is, what is the best practice for a kid who is having a meltdown, or who's anxious, or you fill in the blank there? There is no magical breathing trick, no mindful off switch for a tantrum. The best practices for a kid in meltdown mode is your own practice. The non-reactive presence of an adult and the wisdom and compassion we've gleaned from our own formal and informal practices are what the struggling kids need the most. And I'm going to add, it's what all kids need the most. So, there you go. Start with yourself. Develop a personal practice. And maybe you are already doing something right now that is supporting your own well-being. And maybe just looking a little bit deeper into what is already here in your life. Simply learning to pause throughout the day can build this attentional muscle. We can be more present to whatever is happening. Go slowly. Really, go slowly. There's a lot of ideas that we can just fix it and go really fast. But remember kindness. We can be so hard on ourselves. And so we bring kindness into the practice. Jon Kabat-Zinn says, if you don't hear the word heartfulness in the word mindfulness, you probably have to look again at what mindfulness is for you. There is heartfulness here. There is kindness here. We have to bring that sense of kindness, curiosity, gentleness to this practice, because sometimes we take a look and we don't really like what we find. But can we be with it? We can also start paying attention to the caring moments that show up throughout our days and actually have them as a receiving care practice. And when we can receive care like that, remembering these moments of gratitude, generosity, we can better extend to others as well. Practice often. So it's easy to fall into a lot of thinking about this, or reading a book about it, or talking to someone about it, or thinking we can think our way through everything. But we really want to start paying attention to how does it feel, and how does it feel now. And so practicing as often as you can really build that attentional muscle. And finally, be part of a practice community. I mean, look around the room. This is a community. We can't do this alone. So I'd like to close with a quote by Vimala Thakar. We study the mind because we want the harmony of peace to prevail, because we need the joy of love in our hearts, because we care about the quality of life our children will inherit. To be attentive requires tremendous love of living. And so with that, could we take a moment just to drop in? Just the pause itself. And so just notice how it is right now. Maybe shifting a little bit, maybe closing the eyes just for a moment. Going from the thinking mind, dropping right into the body. And taking a deep breath in and letting it out. Another one. Deep breath in and out. And now opening the eyes, checking in with your body, checking in with your mind. Thank you very much.
Man, it's just getting better and better. I just feel really good. So our next part of the evening is sort of a two-part. We're going to hear briefly from 4 different school communities and people who've been instrumental in mindfulness practices in these school communities. Some people are principals, some people are teachers, but each of these communities, they're going to talk about what it is that they have started to do, what they're observing. This is just going to be maybe a 5 to 7 minute appetizer, because after that point, what we're going to do is we're going to look around, and just like Lori was saying, none of this takes us anywhere unless we start with ourselves. And so looking at where is it that I find a point of connection? And that's going to be true for the people who are speaking now too. So part of my purpose here is to make sure that you know what their faces look like, because then they're going to spread out around the room and we can have some conversations on areas that we find interesting and relevant and resonant for us. So I would like to start, we'll just start with the top of our paper here with Ava Morris, who is the principal of Brown Street Academy. Ava.
Well, good evening. I love to talk about things that I'm passionate about. And one of the things in my school, I am, again, as she said, Ava Morris. I'm the principal of Brown Street Academy, located at 2029 North 20th Street here in the city. Well, if you are familiar with that address, then you know that it's in the heart of the inner city. And so, you might say, well, how does that work? How does mindfulness work when you're dealing with lots of challenges and at-risk behaviors? How do you fit that in? Well, I'm going to tell you. So I want to start by just kind of briefly telling you how mindfulness came to be at my school. Susan, I'll be forever grateful for Susan dropping into my school one day with her partner, Anna. And I can't even remember what she was coming for. I just heard her begin to talk about mindfulness, and I said, oh, I want that in my school. I want that in my school. Well, if you know the budgets that we're dealing with in schools, you know that they're very limited. And I thought, I can't afford it, but I want that in my school. It fits right in with what I'm moving towards. And so Susan is a very laid-back person. What you see is what you get. She's very laid back. And she said, well, Ava, I think we can find a way. So I got really excited because my personality is totally opposite from hers. And I'm like, okay, well, can we make this work? We can make this happen. Oh, I want to get it done. And so anyway, like I said, cutting to the chase, Susan made it happen for our school. And it's been a progressive type thing at our school because we've gotten so into mindfulness at our school that we've seen so many benefits, we've reaped so many benefits from it that it gets better every year. So we started with first Susan, her business, Growing Minds, sends out representatives, and they go to the classrooms, and they practice mindfulness within the classrooms. So it's maybe 5 or 10 minutes of a teacher's day, but it's consistency. The consistency is there. So it's about 6 weeks, and boy, I tell you that 6 weeks comes and goes so quickly. I'm like, it's time for you all to end already. So we practiced that with the staff and with the students. And the staff was so taken by it that the next year they said we would like training ourselves, just us, before we do it in the spring. So we did the professional development with the staff. Again, the results were just wonderful. Students were getting into it. You know, you would see students around the building, you know, and at first it was kind of funny to them. But then you would see students who were very troubled, and I would say, go into that quiet place, practice your mindfulness. And they began to do it. You know, when I was growing up, they said practice makes perfect. And so the more students began to practice it, the more excited they got about it. So then it became my time to be excited about it. So I believe that it was Anna that said, you know, Ava, do you do this on the announcements? And I said, you know, I never thought about that. So I began doing it on the announcements, but I wasn't sure whether they were really stopping and pausing. I mean, here I am behind on a PA system, but I wasn't real sure that they were practicing it. So I decided we meet as a group in the morning for breakfast. And I said, why don't I just do this in front of the students so that I can see who's really practicing mindfulness. So that began my routine. Every morning, when we're at breakfast, I ask the students to press the pause button. They understand it, they're used to it because there is that consistency piece. And I say, it's time for us to practice our mindfulness. And so we get into our mindful body positions, and it goes something like this. I meant to bring my chime, Susan, and oh, it's here, okay, good. So here it is. I'm gonna just do a brief demonstration. So here's my routine that I use every morning. And I say, it is that time. Time to practice our mindfulness. And then I say, at the sound of the chime, it is our indication to put ourselves into our mindful body positions. That means that we're clearing our minds of anything and everything that would hinder us from making it a productive day. I've just learned to just love it. But anyway, that's how it goes every day without fail. And if I'm not there, you should see the students come running, looking for me. We have to practice our mindfulness. I'm like, okay, I'm there. It has just become such an integral part of their day. Because as I said, I work with the inner city students. These are students who come to school daily with so much baggage. And, you know, they need that moment to regroup. And I can say to you, with all truthfulness and honesty, we have seen the behaviors change in our school. And I like to attribute it to mindfulness, that we take that moment in the day to just pause, regroup, calm ourselves, go into that quiet place. I ask them to close their eyes. I do everything that Susan taught me. Close your eyes, you know, clear your minds. Take yourself, visualize. I've even added that to it, Susan. Visualize yourself making it a productive day. So I can tell you, I'm taking it to the next level now. My teachers asked this recently. Can we do it twice a day? How about we do it after lunch when the kids are just hyper and all over the place? Let's do that again. So that's our next step. But we're doing it faithfully, consistently, And I can say to you all, if you're not, you don't know what you're missing out on. You don't. So you want to control your classroom. Start with your mindfulness. I know people are doing other things such as brain breaks, and they call it different things. But there's nothing like a person coming into tune with themselves and understanding what it is that they need to slow down and regroup and readjust their focus. So I'm here to promote it. I really didn't have a conversation with Lori prior to, but it was a perfect segue into, my promotion of the powerfulness of practicing mindfulness on a daily basis. Thank you.
We will continue with Michelle, where are you? Oh, there you are. With Michelle Paris, who is the principal of a Northwest Catholic school. What's really nice about the people who are presenting this evening is that we have 2 different public school districts and 2 different choice school settings. And so we're also showing some hashtag cross-sector love this evening. So.
Good evening. Ava, I can tell you that doing it twice a day in your building will make a huge difference. We partnered with Mount Mary University's counseling department, their school counseling department, and they came to us and said, we'd like to try an initiative in your school. Are you game? And we said, sure. If it's going to cut down on some behaviors and help us refocus our students, we will. So we started with trauma-sensitive professional development for our students, or for our teachers first. And we read some books. We did lots of different professional development. That some was theory, some was you can put in action right away. And we had lots of different pieces to ours that eventually led us to our all-school mindfulness that we do. But we also incorporated parental pieces where we did lots of drumming, and students got to make drums, and we would teach parents about how the mindfulness can help their students in the classroom and how they can talk to their students. So we have lots of different pieces that we use currently. We use these mindful bottles that have glue in them, and I'm very fortunate that we have been able to, in our school budget, put money towards having 2 school counselors, and I have 2 campuses, so I have 1 at each. My lower campus, the kids love to make these mindful bottles, and there's glitter in them, and they shake them, and you can literally set one on the desk, and if a child starts to feel their anxiety going up or they're getting angry about something, they will flip and shake this themselves, and they will watch the glitter fall. And it has, that simple bottle has made a huge difference. We also do mindfulness meditation twice a day. We do one in our morning assembly that both of our campuses have. We do a yoga pose. We do some scripture devotion at that time, and so that's able to really focus the children during that time. We also do it during after recess because they come in very riled up, and especially at our upper campus, that's how we're able to settle them down, and they're able to refocus their attention to concentrate on their academics again. We have looked at it developmentally, so our younger ones, they get to meditate on a lily pad, so to speak. We have a recording that walks them through how to go on a lily pad. Our older kids, it's more of a walkthrough that will actually talk about how sports figures will use mindfulness and how they use it to be able to visualize what they're supposed to be doing, whatever sport it is. And so we've taught the kids how it's used in that manner as well. We've actually been able to go into some other areas of this and use things, like I said, the drums. We've also brought in some therapy dogs at our upper campus. And the children, it's amazing to watch them, how they all of a sudden will calm down when there is an animal that is by them. Our lower campus, we have some various pets in the classroom, and that pet therapy is a tremendous asset as well. The drumming piece of it creates that rhythm and allows the children to really focus. And I will have to tell you, I am not a musical person. And so when we did the drumming, I was like, this is not for me. But I actually got into it as well. And to watch the students be able to take that drumming and with their parents, if it was a parent involvement session that we were having, or if it's in the classroom, our guidance counselors will use those drums to be able to center the children and then be able to talk about whatever the various items are they're talking about. The other piece that we use is called Mind Up Curriculum, and we talk to the students about their, all the different parts of their brain, their frontal cortex, and our students can tell you what all those pieces are and what do they do, and down to our first and second graders. So they're very able to learn those materials and incorporate that, and the parent will come and say, my son or daughter just told me about their prefrontal cortex. What is that? So that has been a tremendous help. I have to say that we saw over the last couple of years a significant drop in our office referrals, because not only did the teachers have those tools, but the students are learning how to self-regulate and how to calm themselves. And we saw over a 50% decrease in our office referrals. And I have to tell you, at one point, I was just reviewing some data for something. We had over 1,000 office referrals one month. And so that has come down tenfold. And so our next goal is now to reduce it again. So it really does make an impact on our students.
So we have our next two schools are actually connected, because we've got, as many times happens with talented people, school leaders go from one setting to another. And so I don't know how you guys want to do this. Do you want to do all come up at the same time, or do you want, okay, cool. So we've got this cohort of 4 amazing people who represent 2 different school districts, or I guess we've got St. Raphael Archangel and West Milwaukee Intermediate School, who have some points of connection among them. Come on up.
As Mauria Turkowski was telling me as we sat down sort of nervously and looked into the crowd, we're all connected in some thread, in some fashion, in some way, just being in this room. So relax. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Terisa Folaron, and I am the current principal of St. Raphael, the Archangel School, located on Milwaukee's South Side. And as an educational consultant, besides my principalship, I've worked with West Milwaukee Intermediate School with Mauria Turkowski and some of the current Montessori schools within the Milwaukee public school system, but also through the charter world. So we are all connected, which is a lovely thought. Oh, I apologize. I neglected to mention I'm also an alum several times over of this amazing institution. So there's the plug. So I gravitate and circle around and love being here. So at St. Raphael's is a K-4 through 8 institution with approximately 400 students catering to approximately 250 families. Our student community is comprised of mostly ELL Spanish-speaking students experiencing and dealing with generational poverty. And because of those 2 elements, and combined with high poverty, generational, it means that most of our individuals need some sort of trauma-informed care. So that's a lot to deal with. So knowing that we care about our community and we want to bring something to them, we decided to initiate this year as our pilot schools, our school's pilot year for mindfulness. With me is Laura Cable, who is our school guidance counselor and our lead teacher for the mindfulness program. She also leads our PLC on health and wellness for our school. And then we have April Szymczak, who is our 2nd grade STEM teacher, and she is also part of the wellness and health PLC, which we've started at our school, and leads our targeted grade level groups. So as we went along, we tried to figure out in our pilot year how we are going to attack something as big and monumental as a school-wide initiative. So just by a raise of hands, how many of you have looked at data? It could be voting data, demographics, school, taxes coming up, right? Okay, so data is a large part of our daily lives, especially if you're in the education world. And we wanted to increase buy-in of our staff into the mindfulness initiative. So we started a major and minor tracking form. It's an online Google form to track student behaviors. So a major form, you go into the Google form, and that would be something that you would document an incident with a child that would require administrative assistance. So that's pretty serious. It means it can't be handled in the classroom. That the teachers and instructors have already gone through the PBIS motions and said, okay, we need some other intervention here. The minor tracking referral form that's online documents student interactions, behaviors that required maybe multiple redirections. A student is distracted and can't seem to get on task. Maybe you told student X 4 times, hey, you really need to get that notebook out, and you've done everything you could, right? Close proximity, multiple reminders, kneeled in. Okay, now I'm going to give you your notebook. And you would document that in these 2 forms, depending on what sort of level of distraction that was. We then took the data and looked at 6 weeks of the minor tracking form and quickly realized that there were 3 categories, populations that needed assistance. One was our 2nd grade, which April Szymczak is, again, the teacher of. And then also our 4th grade was another one, just because the number of referrals that were coming through. And then when we looked at just the number of referrals overall, we realized that there was one other population that needed assistance, and that was our teachers. So while we were thinking students, when we looked and pulled up that data, we saw staff, which meant that our staff were in need as well. So we couldn't ignore that. So one of the things that we did was create the Health and Wellness PLC, which was voluntary. So any teacher that was interested in implementing mindfulness, learning more, helping our staff and students gain and increase in their own sense of wellness, that's where all of this came out of. So I will throw the mic to you.
I am Laura Cable. I'm the school counselor at St. Raphael School. I will be speaking on 2 different elements of the mindfulness initiative that we have at St. Raphael. We are integrating mindfulness into our weekly PD sessions. And at the end of a long day, chances are teachers have been triggered on and off many times, or might even been going into the PD triggered. So it is a time where we can practice and I can model the use of a technology source, whether that be an app on a phone or a website, calm.com being one of them. We have an extensive list of mindfulness apps over at our table in the corner, in addition to sparkle jars, mindfulness jars, and all the materials. So be sure to come to our little corner. And so we start the PDs centering ourselves, calming our fear centers of the brain, which is the amygdala, in order for our prefrontal cortex to open and be more receptive to information, making us calmer and more creative and kinder. And in addition to assisting the teachers and calming down the teachers and their amygdalas, the fear center of the brain, I like to incorporate it into individual counseling sessions. An individual counseling session for one student is typically 20 minutes, and I set an alarm for about 17 minutes. At that time, I offer the student 3 minutes of mindfulness using the calm.com app. It's been one of the most popular for the students. They are able to choose the background, choose the noise, choose everything. And as we know, students who have experienced trauma, they flourish when there are choices. And the majority of my students that come to me have been affected by significant trauma, family trauma, community trauma, and are very hypersensitive to triggers. And therefore, the mindfulness is integral in the individual counseling sessions. And we make sure to do that right before they get back to class. And that is going to be part of their class day and hopefully part of their life.
Good evening. I'm April Szymczak, and I teach 2nd grade. And I've been using, and I'm an alum from Alverno. So I am a 2nd grade teacher, and I'm an alum. And for me, I started a few years ago when I needed to find something to do with some of the children that were coming to me. And I wasn't exactly sure what to do. So I took a class in Madison, and I started reading to my students this book called Arnie and His Special Tools. And Arnie goes through all the how he can help himself. So I've started picking 3 of those areas for my class, and we make our own tools. One of the tools they love is a fidget. A fidget is a Beanie Baby toy that they may touch and hold, and they like to squeeze it. They're squeezing it while they're having math. It kind of just goes with them. I had to get used to it in the beginning, that there was constant movement as a teacher, because you're expected to kind of be still and that they're listening. And they're moving. They're constantly touching and moving things. So for me, I had to get aware of that. And what they're doing is they're relaxing their bodies. They're relaxing their minds. So the whole time their hand is moving, sometimes it shifts, and they're just constantly moving it back and forth. The second item I've added is aromatherapy. We have a diffuser going in the classroom, and lavender is our favorite right now, just to calm us down. It is running in the morning. And it also runs again in the afternoon after recess, which is a nice time because they get a little smelly. So we have that beautiful smell going. But it does really relax them. The third item I use is just a relaxing of their body. After recess, I welcome them to lay down. They don't have to. They can sit at their desks if they want, but we lay down on our backs. And we have relaxing music happening. And we are pretending that we are sea otters, and we are in our little river, and we are floating. And as the waves come over us, we can feel it up to our ears, and we are laying down, our necks are back, and the stress of second grade recess drama is floating away, but it also helps them just kind of relax and get ready to focus for our academic afternoon. So those are really the 3 areas I use, and we are trying new and wonderful things every time I get a chance to hear from other people. I love to find some new ideas. So that is really what we are doing in the second grade classroom, and I'm going to be venturing into other classrooms to help other teachers as well, just to start using different learning tools to help the students. Thank you. One more.
Hello, I'm Mauria Turkowski. I am the math chair, instructor, and character ed coordinator at West Milwaukee Intermediate School. We serve a very diverse population, about 500 students in grades 6 through 8. Again, low-income students who require most of our students require some sort of trauma-informed care at our school. So about 2-3 years ago, our district school psychologist applied for a school climate change grant. And we got the grant, and it was for a progressive 5-year program to integrate mindfulness into all of our schools in the district. My school, West Milwaukee Intermediate, was chosen as the pilot school due to our population of students and our work, ongoing work with anti-bullying prevention programs. So we are going into our 3rd year of mindfulness practices, and it is very successful, and we are seeing results. To date, every school in our district, West Allis, West Milwaukee School District, is practicing mindfulness at some level. Our training and curriculum is primarily through Growing Minds. They have done in-services with our schools. We also had a training by Dr. Tish Jennings, and we received a copy of her book, Mindfulness for Teachers. And for the 3rd time, I think you're going to hear it tonight, teachers and educators need to develop their own practice and use it for themselves before we can start teaching it to students. Students need to see that authenticity through our practice. A few of us also, including myself, attended a mindfulness conference in Colorado 2 summers ago, and that was hosted by Mindfulness in Education along with speakers from Mindful Schools. To date, everyone in our school has had mindfulness training, from our custodians to our administration. We practice mindfulness at our staff meetings, school-wide functions, and every day in our classrooms. So on Mondays, we wear our Keep Calm and Breathe On t-shirts, bright blue, to give a visual representation to the practice. We also do mindfulness over our announcements on Monday mornings as a school-wide activity. In the classroom, we do mindful minutes, which can include anything from focusing on your breath, using the Hoberman spheres, the glitter jars. I have a singing bowl in my classroom, and that is now student-led. So my students, even 7 weeks into the school year already, they are raising their hand, volunteering, reminding me, asking me for mindful minutes, because sometimes I get caught up in the moment and I don't even realize, yes, you're absolutely right, this is what we need right now. We use it during transitions, from notes to practice, from stations back to our seats before the bell. We do it prior to assessments. And this year we are incorporating restorative practices in our school. We have also incorporated into the restorative and community building circles in the classrooms. Students are self-reporting that they're engaging in mindfulness practices outside of school without prompting. I had a student last year, her mother, and it's just the two of them in the home, her mother was going through some mental health concerns. And my 8th grade student was playing the role of mom for quite some time. And she confided in me, and I lent her some of my personal mindfulness tools to take home over the weekend. She shared them with her mother, and they started a family practice. So while that might not be, the norm, it's still happening, and it's increasing. We have seen a lessening of consequences, behave outs, and office referrals, PBIS speak, for detentions and take 10-minute break in someone else's room. And I was just speaking with my principal over the last few weeks, and we've noticed our school is calmer. We have less conflict in the hallway. And I personally have not had one classroom detention or office referral yet this school year. This year, our focus is on parental outreach. We really want to bring in the families, community members, so that we can provide our students not only with a mindful environment within the school, but also outside of the school, so that everyone that comes in there, interact with them, has these mindful de-escalation tools to provide them. And that would be about it. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to get to the conversational part of this evening. But before we do that, I went in front of. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
You have no idea what I'm going to say.
I didn't know I was that
This is
short.
Amy Shapiro, and I love her. She is my colleague here at Alverno. She's a professor of philosophy, a friend and hero, and has long been practicing mindfulness herself, and has been leading Alverno in deepening our own practices in mindfulness, and there are lots of ways that she's done that. But one of the things that she brought to us was really this idea of this tree of contemplative practices when we were talking about planning this event. And so I thought that it might be great for you to talk a little bit about what it represents, and then how we might move into some conversations over the next 15 minutes or so.
Hi. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. I just have to say, this is like a dream come true for me. And I feel so privileged to be up here. And you heard me down there telling people to say they're alums when they're alums, because I'm just so proud of this institution and where it's come in all of this. And you probably have a sense of the feeling that is here in terms of the hospitality and sense of spirituality that is really this institution is rooted in. I also want to say, as a professor of philosophy here, I am also privileged to lead a group that's developed on campus called Cultivating Mindful Awareness and Intention that has been looking at ways to really promote mindfulness across the college as a whole. And I now teach a course called The Philosophy and Science of Mindfulness that I have students from all over the college taking in nursing and education and psychology and science, and it's just truly wonderful. So in 2014, we had an Alverno community conference called A Matter of Mindfulness. And at that point in time, the committee discovered that the Center for Contemplative Mind and Society, which is a really wonderful resource, had this tree of contemplative practices. And one of the things that I think is really beautiful about what we've heard so far tonight is how varied practice can be, and how it can come from a variety of places. And as Lori said, she said, looking a little deeper into what is already there in your life. And I think that this tree really helps us do that with its branches. So what we thought we would do is offer you an opportunity to talk together, or for us to talk together, at different points in the room that reference the different branches of the tree. It may be that, for instance, you're a walker, and maybe what you want to do is think about how walking can be a mindful practice. It isn't necessarily in itself, but it can be with some awareness and intention. So what we'd like to do is have you look around the room. You have the tree on the back of your brochure, and sort of identify which of the branches you gravitate to. Is it stillness, generative, creative, activist, relational, movement, or ritual and cyclical? And just head over to one of these. If you're not attracted to any one in particular, just go to one where you like the people. And let's have a conversation about what it means to you, how you might make it, or how you do use one of these things as a contemplative practice. And that'll give you a chance to get up and move around and chat with one another.
And then I'll sing the chime in about 10 minutes, and at that point we'll shift to something you're curious about but don't do yet. All right? So go ahead.
Spread out. Disperse.
So Amy and I were thinking.
We were arguing.
We weren't arguing. We were exchanging ideas.
This is absolutely true.
About how our original plan resonates with what we were listening to. Because our original plan was that we were going to have, sort of be listening to all of these conversations, and then we were going to sum it up. But Amy's idea, which I actually agree with, is that it might be really interesting to hear from you guys as well. So basically, what's this experience been like for you? What are you excited about? What do you want to try? I also wanted to point your attention to the inside of your program. At the bottom here is a tiny little URL that's a goo.gl, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That link is this document. And that document has a lot of the resources, including one that I added while you guys were talking about calm.com, while they were presenting. So that will have many of the resources that were mentioned this evening. So please do make use of that. Amy, what do you think?
I was just going to say, Desiree thinks you can multitask, but you can't. Just had to say that. No, I actually am. Part of this comes out of my class today. I'm really very moved by the fact that different people resonate with different kinds of practices. And I've found that in the classroom, that very often loving kindness meditation is one that a large number of people gravitate to. And I think that there's been some research, actually I've heard Richie Davidson talk about how much people seem to, what it does for people. So I think that's a big dimension of it. But I've also found that I actually was telling a group about laughing meditation, which we did in my class today. And I had done it when I had given there's someone in this room, I don't know where Carmen is, but I taught an intense 3-week course, and I gave an assignment, and I could feel the whole room just dissolve. So I had everybody lie down and do belly laughs. And in the final, they had to do prezzies and incorporate their focus on their different areas of study. And one of the students actually included a link to a laughing meditation. And I'm sort of just amazed at how you can bring in all kinds of things. We've heard it tonight and I had to lean over to Michelle and tell her that drumming actually stimulates the lymphatic system. It's one of the few things that does, and it's so healthy for you. So even if you're not musical, you can still drum. All you have to do is beat something, right? Not a person, but I think that this tree of contemplative practices is so useful that way, and you could hear how different people gravitated to different things. I overheard somebody talking about the need to be creative, and I think the thing to do is to think about how do you turn that creativity, that desire for creativity, into a practice that extends to others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I heard was, well, first of all, like just that how interesting it is to feel a point of connection with other people that you're meeting for the first time just because you stood by each other in that first rotation. Like, that's a pretty cool thing. It's the invisible tree that actually connects all of us, right? And so I think that one of the things that I was mindful of is that there are a lot of different ways in which people are understanding the work of education in this room too. I heard a music therapist talking about her practice. I've heard a philosopher talking about her practice. People in different kinds of roles, in different kinds of settings, with different kinds of connections, and yet the connectivity is the key. And just like sort of the life force of a tree, just listening to the room, I was thinking about just how this tree is nourished by its points of connection to itself. What are some things that came up in some of your settings? Is there anybody who feels moved to speak or share?
We have microphones right here.
Yeah, Mary. Here, wait, I'll bring it to you.
Not so much about what happened in our session, but as I was looking at the tree and deciding where I belong, I was seeing my friends, my close friends in the tree too, and they're all over the place. We're different. But it was just eye-opening for me. We're so different. We're at different branches of the tree, but we're so close.
You know, I just have to say one of my favorite practices, which I've made up, I call it passionate appreciation. And it's sort of built on sympathetic joy, which is a practice in Buddhism. But it never occurred to me to think about the tree that way, but it does. It clues you into what other people's relationship is with the world. And I think the thing that is most moving to me about what we're doing tonight and what people are doing in the schools is that we're promoting peace. And you know, there's a way in which if you can appreciate what others bring to the table and you allow it to grow, that's the only way we're going to heal ourselves.
Absolutely. I just am inspired to go back to Lori's last slide because I just was loving looking at this. Other thoughts? I know a lot of your names, so I will come up and find you. Julie, what's on your mind?
Well, I was noticing that I went to Activist at first, and a lot of the same people from Activist went to Stillness when they were thinking about stuff. So that was kind of interesting, and I wondered if a lot of those were total opposite, or...
Other folks, yeah, hi. I'm glad I changed my shoes.
Just want to leave me up here.
Well, we kind of talked about like how the tree actually, like the branches within the tree kind of blend with each other. So example, like you can be creative, but you can also be an activist. So like you have to kind of think about what you want to do in order to volunteer. So you have to use creativity, for an example.
And so maybe stillness can lead to activism and vice versa.
Yeah. Anybody else have something that they'd like to share?
Your teachers, come on.
It may be that we're coming to the end of the natural rhythm of the evening. Yes, hi.
I wanted to speak to activist. only because with the current political climate and where I currently am, I remember back in 2010, with everything that was going on, watching our drumline from Roosevelt Middle School participate in some of the teacher union marches. And I'm just really aware now, unfortunately where I am, that I really have to leave my hands off politics. So I was just kind of standing here with Savannah, kind of wondering how we engage students in that kind of bearing witness and social activism with leaving politics out, because where you might be, that might not be well received.
Thoughts? Oh, of course. I'm a philosopher. I have lots of thoughts. I'm also an activist. So I think it's a really moving and difficult, I think, question, especially for those of us who have grown up as activists and want to change things. And one of the problems, I don't know about you, but I imagine, is the amount of anger. And this is where contemplative practice, I think, becomes absolutely crucial. So, we live with a lot of anger these days. We're concerned because we care. So getting in touch with how we care is a way to, I think, transform our anger into more activism and discover how that happens. And I know as a long-time meditator, and I've heard this from students who are not long-time meditators but have just started the practice, that if you give yourself an opportunity to really become grounded in yourself, the problems that you experience and the feelings that you experience become resolvable. Because you become open to it. So I think that as a result, it gives you an opportunity to really transform that anger into something much more productive, because we know anger really can very often trip us up because it becomes all consuming. And that's why I think it's important to think about the tree of contemplative practices as an opportunity to see something like activism as a contemplative practice rather than as something apart from it. So it's a spiritual practice, and then and it doesn't have to be grounded in any religion. It's something that we are actually doing in our lives and can see the way in which it promotes peace. And that gives us, I think, a different way of looking at it and then provides us with a transformation.
I was also thinking about what Ava shared relating to her work with Susan around, we'll find a way. And there's something about the fluidity of the way that she said that I think is pretty beautiful, because I think that water can be very powerful. We've seen hurricanes in recent weeks, right, that have wreaked incredible destruction. But we also know that water finds a way. Water transforms rocks, right, if you give it enough time. And so I think for me, that's one of the things that's very powerful. I am mindful of everyone's time, so I'd love to invite Susan back. Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, please do fill out your feedback and leave it on your chair. But, no. Please fill out your feedback and leave it by the door. Right. But Susan, if you would, just a few words to close. Yes, please.
Okay. So let's do a final practice. So as we always do, getting into your mindful position, meaning sitting in a way where you feel dignified and strong, yet comfortable and alert. I'm going to ring the chime, and after that, we'll take 5 breaths. And the way we do this in schools looks like this. If you're in elementary school, breathing in and breathing out. The same pace, you move your finger to your breath. Take 5 breaths. If you want to breathe in and breathe out, you can use your hands like can just put your hand wherever you feel your breath. Whatever works for you. I'll start with the chime. So with gratitude for every one of you, for the practice that each one of you pursue in your own lives, and the ripple effect of all of that. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.